Well, howdy, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lauren Musica Show, your favorite update in the battle for life, family, and freedom. Thank you again so much for being with me. I'm Lauren Musica, attorney and human rights advocate, and I serve as president CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, the nation's largest peaceful sidewalk outreach organization. When newly certified, newly trained sidewalk advocates go out to the sidewalk outside of their local abortion or abortion referral facility, many times they are concerned about security guards on the property watching their every move, and the abortion workers themselves who sometimes come out and spew vitriol at them. But the truth is, it's really a group of volunteers called abortion center escorts who cause the most trouble and create the most chaos on the sidewalk. Abortion center escorts are women and men who volunteer their time outside the abortion or abortion referral center to guide clients inside, and who seem to delight in concocting crazy ways to interfere with our sidewalk advocacy. You would not believe some of the things that sidewalk advocates have experienced at the hands of these abortion center escorts. So today, thanks to a special request from one of our supporters and donors, Carolyn, who was so intrigued when I mentioned some of our run-ins with escorts over the years, I'm joined by members of the Sidewalk Advocates for Life national team, specifically our programs department, who advises our leaders across the United States. We are, and beyond really, we're going to share the not so good and the absolutely ugly situations we have found ourselves in. So buckle up. This is going to be quite a ride. So again, let me go ahead and introduce the Sidewalk Advocates for Life regional programs managers, the lovely ladies on our national team who each advise a region of our leaders on the front lines, leading a team of sidewalk advocates in prayer and outreach at their local abortion or abortion referral facility, or those who take their advocacy out into the proverbial town square, out into a high traffic area. So with us, here they are, yay, is Susan O'Neill, who advises the East, Melissa Yeomans, who has the Central United States, Linda Freire, who has the Southeast, Elizabeth Richards, who oversees the West, Kelly Lamb, who oversees South Florida and our international locations, and Briana, I have to channel my inner Italian for this, Zappavigna, who has Colorado. Welcome, ladies. So good to have you with me today. Awesome. Okay. We are going to dive right in. This is going to be quite a party, quite a roundtable discussion. I can't wait for y'all to hear from them, their stories, their wisdom. This is what they do day in and day out, right? Encouraging our leaders in the midst of the spiritual battle. They've got a lot to share. Okay. So first, let's go ahead and define, because this is what we do in school, right? We define our terms before we jump in, right? What is an abortion center escort, and how does the abortion industry make use of them? So let me go to Susan, and then we'll hear from Melissa. So Susan, what would you say to that?
Thanks, Lauren. So an escort is someone who has been recruited by the abortion facility that works to distract potential clients from speaking with pro-life advocates. They're usually volunteers, but are sometimes even paid by the abortion facility.
Yeah, there you go. Nice and concise. Melissa, tell us about abortion center escorts and how you support people, what you see from them as a regional programs manager.
Yeah, so abortion facility escorts, they can come in all stripes and all types. There's a kind of a range, really. There are some people who are they have reacted and responded to maybe some aggression that has come from different pro-life individuals on the sidewalk, and the abortion industry will call in, saying, our clients or our patients are being harassed by, people, we need you. And I think some come as a response to what they see happening on the sidewalk. Others are, and then there are abortion facility escorts who, may just be very motivated personally based on their experience or their beliefs. They believe in abortion. They believe it's a good solution. They believe women need abortion. And so they have really bought that lie, hook, line, and sinker, that abortion is necessary health care. And so they come out because they want to make sure that transition from, out in the community and into the facility is not, there's no intervention, and that these offerings, these healthcare offerings, the direction to pregnancy centers and such, they want to intervene because they trust the abortion industry. They don't trust Sidewalk Advocates for Life. And so they're there to just make sure that we don't have that opportunity to provide additional supports or resources. And they try to get right in our way.
Yeah. And to your point, Melissa, I've found that most abortion center escorts have one or more abortions in their past. And it really is a mode of pain and justification that keeps them there, that motivates them to go out, right? We always hear the line from the other side, trust women. And it's so funny to me that these folks, quite often volunteers, sometimes paid by the abortion industry, are sent out to, quote unquote, escort the women inside, but interfere with our First Amendment right to hand them information, to let them know about life-affirming alternatives, to let them know that there's a pregnancy resource center that's going to service them for free next door or down the street. They work so hard to do this because, like you said, they're trying to put doubt in the minds of clients. They're trying to thwart our life-saving, potentially soul-saving message. They don't like that we're stealing their business on one hand, but they also don't like what we stand for and the message of life and love that we're often offering many mornings on the sidewalk. So it really is something to think about. I want to go to Linda and then Briana on this. How can this, meaning the presence of abortion center escorts, be a sign that sidewalk advocates are being effective? And I just want to say, again, if you don't have abortion center escorts, that doesn't mean that you're not effective on the sidewalk. Sometimes there's limited resources that an abortion facility has, or there's another reason why escorts can't come out. But we have found that quite often, if there are escorts there, there's a reason for it. So, Linda, what would you say to that?
Yeah, sure, of course. Thanks, Lauren. So I definitely think, especially when serving our leaders as well, and personally for me in the South Florida region, we had specific escorts coming in very surprisingly. And from there, we were all very alarmed and very shocked. Even our sidewalk advocates were there. People, prayer warriors, people were like, what is going on? And in that moment, I was able to serve our people there on the grounds and let them know that it is okay. Like, let's continue with our mission and letting them know that this is something that, obviously the enemy doesn't like and is happening. So, specifically in that location, the escorts started coming one by one. And it was interesting how they have a strategic way of doing things on the sidewalk. And very, very distracting, different things from noises, signs, music, all the stuff. And so from there, which was really interesting, is that they started doing all the chaotic things that they did. And we continued with our our mission on the sidewalk. And then shortly after, every situation is different for each location. But shortly after, that facility shut down. And it was so incredible to see that, because there was a moment of temptation to really just step back and say, well, this is happening. I don't want to be part of that. But we were able to stand our grounds amidst all the chaos that was happening, and God prevailed. And what was happening is that these escorts were there, all the stuff was happening, and we continued to go out on the sidewalk, and that facility shut down for good. And it was one of our first facilities that shut down here, and so far has only shut down here in South Florida. So it was a huge victory, huge victory.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really shows that they knew that they were potentially teetering on the edge of closure, sent those escorts out to try to interfere with your life-saving work and message, right? Which was diverting women away from the abortion industry into the arms of a pregnancy care center that would actually care for them holistically and for their baby, right? Briana, how have you seen that this can be a sign, the presence of escorts can be a sign that sidewalk advocates are being effective?
Yeah, well, as you know, Lauren, there's a reason we do outreach this way. We know that peaceful, prayerful, loving, and law-abiding outreach works. And we see clients turn around from the sidewalk every day. And if that wasn't happening, if that wasn't working, they wouldn't care. And they wouldn't put other people on the sidewalk to prevent us from doing that. And something I actually have seen here in Colorado at one of our locations, there's one location that's actually been open for 50 years since Roe v. Wade was passed. And there's been escorts probably on that sidewalk the whole time. But not until our team was started, our Sidewalk Advocates team was started, and we actually saw the very first save that facility had ever experienced in 50 years. Shortly after, they actually hired law enforcement to come out and stand with the escorts. Because there's this presence and professionalism and authority that Sidewalk Advocates bring that escorts just don't have to offer. So I think that's another group of people or another person that we can see is saying, wow, we're really making an impact here. And we can see that they're starting to feel nervous about whether or not they're going to be able to remain open.
Oh, so well said, Briana, that we bring an element of professionalism and kindness and love that the escorts don't often have, right? Interestingly, even if they've been trained by Planned Parenthood, really something to think about. I know that I remember back when Louisville, Kentucky had an abortion facility prior to the overturning of Roe, there was an escort that actually left a note on the windshield of one of our Sidewalk Advocates and said, "Thank you for treating these women with dignity better than the escorts have been treating her," right? Still remember that. That's what comes to mind. So yeah, we need to be there because to the abortion industry, a lot of times this is treated as just a commonplace thing or even a joke. And we're taking it seriously, but we're also bringing a lot of love and light and hope to the sidewalk, right? And women need to see us there, despite the antics from the other side. One of the biggest parts of your job, so to speak, is supporting leaders who are dealing with difficult abortion center escorts. So I'd love to bring into the conversation a little bit of how you do that and do it well, because this is, if not the top issue, one of the top issues that we're dealing with is we're trying to encourage our folks in the midst of the spiritual battle to stay the course and to stay, building their team in front of the abortion facility until it closes. And even then, if it closes, maybe going on to the next one, right? So I want to go to Elizabeth on that, and then Melissa, have you chime in. So Elizabeth, how do you support our folks when things are heating up on the sidewalk with escorts?
Yes, thank you, Lauren. So first of all, I want to say that our leaders and their advocate teams are heroes. They are truly amazing people that are so courageous and bold. And I think that some of them naturally may not feel bold and courageous, but what happens when you're out there with the intensity that you might experience at some locations because of things like escorts, there's this holy boldness that really takes over when someone is doing outreach, and it causes them to be very present in that moment. And as I'm advising our leaders, one of the things that I think that I do the most is encourage them. I thank them. I thank them for their yes. I thank them for being there no matter what, because their presence is vital. It's critical. And also I encourage them if things ever feel too much or unsafe, obviously they need to step away if they're feeling triggered at all. If they feel like their emotions are going to get the best of them, then to step away and remain in a state of prayer. And if needed, have someone else come in and step in and do the outreach piece, or to get more actively involved in being kind of pressing that line forward to try to speak to men and women going into the facility, because we don't want to be afraid of approaching someone while we're being law abiding to hand them information about life affirming help that's available to them. So really just not to be afraid, right?
So good. So good. Melissa, what would you say as far as encouraging our leaders?
Yeah, so it has been actually a blessing to me to have personally been through some of these same struggles at the sidewalk as an advocate and as a program leader. And I really draw from that experience to support our teams. One of the ways we do that is, I am on call like 24/7. for emergency situations. They have my phone number. If they're on the sidewalk on a Saturday morning and I know things have been intense, I'm, checking my emails, being right there for them, to just advise them right on site in the situation and connect them as quickly as possible to Martin Cannon at Thomas More Society. And recently, that's been the experience, is that we've had a team that's really been dealing with a ferocious and aggressive and law-breaking escort presence. And so they've needed that additional support. Another way we can help is reach out to some other team members with some advice or encouragement, like say how to bolster their security with cameras and do that effectively and in a wise way. So we can actually reach a little further to support the whole team by offering that guidance or taking those extra steps, because being under pressure like that week after week, having these, assaults, really, what's happening in this case is the escorts are literally just grabbing bags away from clients as they're being handed. And, our legal team says that this is a type of mugging. It is a type of mugging, and it's just a matter of time. We will catch that evidence, and there will be consequences for those escorts that break the law at the sidewalk. So that's one of the ways that, I'm honored to be able to support our teams, is to be there for them in that, and pray with them, encourage them. They are courageous, and they really do deal with a lot sometimes.
Yeah, beautiful. I know. I remember at one time looking at all the different issues that our leaders were bringing to us, and I want to say at least at one point in our history, this was the number one thing that you guys were advising on, if not still true today, right? How do we see this reflecting the spiritual battle? Because I think we can all agree as people of faith that this is not just somebody coming out to harass sidewalk advocates for fun. There is an enemy in our midst, and he loves to press buttons, and he loves to cause chaos, and he loves to throw us off our game and get us to not focus on our mission, right? Be distracted by the crazy that's going on around us sometimes. So I want to go to Linda on that, then Kelly, Susan. So Linda, what would you say to that?
Well, as we know, and you mentioned very, very clearly, is that we see what's happening with the behavior of these escorts and the people. Even if you want to mention abortion workers and all of that, we see their behavior is off. Their behavior is not normal. It's not peaceful. And so we know that this is not from God. And so the enemy wants to tempt, let's say, the other person to respond and kind of meet them where they're at in that way of chaos and all of that and distraction. So we could see that this is a spiritual battle. And so immediately, obviously it's the importance of being armored in Christ. And I spoke to one of our leaders a couple days ago, and she was, just telling me that it is unfortunate, and you had mentioned this before, Lauren, is that most of these people, if you actually are able to have a conversation with them, that they're so deeply hurting. They're so deeply hurting in that way, that this is their way of responding out of woundedness, because there's so much healing that needs to happen that it can't happen in that moment, that their way of responding is being the opposite of what we're doing. And so that we know is that main spiritual battle, and we can work from there. If we can see it from the lens of how we're usually trained as sidewalk advocates, then we can truly respond out of love with the escorts that are there. And so this is a new way of just really seeing that perspective of in the human level. One of our leaders told me the same thing, and she said, see that person in the human level and things will change. And so that's so huge. That really, really helps so much. And, she even mentioned, she said, Lauren Musica said it perfect. It says, we are the hands and feet of Christ. And why not be the hands and feet of Christ to these escorts too? And so see them that way in the eyes. So we know that this is a spiritual battle. So have that mentality. And so, this is basically what it is. I mean, we even see a lot of things that are happening visibly with how they do everything with satanic symbols and everything else that happens. It's just chaotic, and it's not of God, unfortunately, So.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned satanic symbols. We have had so-called witches on the sides of buildings casting spells. We have heard satanic music being blasted. We've seen it all out there, right? There was a man who came out to the sidewalk once in Houston. This is, of course, prior to Roe being overturned, because abortion is now illegal in Texas. But so this abortion facility, he would come out and he would pray over the Sidewalk Advocates, a pagan prayer for the environment, right? And I happened to be out on the sidewalk that day, and I felt like I got hit with something, like this heaviness suddenly hit me. I had to go around the corner, turned into a charismatic Catholic, had my hands in the air. I was praying, right? And I was just like trying to shake off whatever it was that he was doing. And I'm telling you, it took about a couple of minutes, and then I felt just this weight lift from me and this peace enter, right? This is real stuff. We see some crazy stuff. Kelly, how have you witnessed the spiritual battle play out with these folks and with other abortion workers at these sites?
Well, at this moment, in South Florida and Latin America, we don't have escorts. But definitely we have faced aggression from abortion workers and even from the abortionists. And it is a strong and heavy spiritual battle to be on the sidewalk. They try to intimidate us, distract us from our mission. And we know that their purpose is to discourage us and take away our peace. Yeah. That's why it's important for us to be in a state of grace and remain in prayer before, during, and after going to the abortion facility.
Yeah, so good, so good. Susan, let me have you cap that off. How have you seen the spiritual battle play out right in front of your face with these escorts and beyond?
I have seen it play out, I believe, in every which way so far that it can play out. But just to Kelly's point, the importance of being strong in your faith, of remaining in prayer. I always like to think of myself as a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. But, a lighthouse probably needs to get repainted now and then, or there are things that have to be done to fortify that. And we have to do the same thing. I think it's so important for our advocates and leaders to remember to have some cleansing prayer when it's over, because we know this is spiritual and we don't want anything dark or negative that's not of the Lord going home with us. So in addition to that, I think finding time for you and your team to maybe have a retreat or a prayer session, or just to step away from the volatility of the sidewalk, just to strengthen themselves and to rest in the comfort of the Lord, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So we have to make sure that we're strong in everything before we go out to offer that to others.
Yeah, so true, Susan. I will say too, we're not the only ones that feel and witness the spiritual battle. I've seen clients be very affected by this, right? I remember early last year, I think it was my first abortion facility visit of the year. I was at preterm in Cleveland, Ohio, the largest abortion facility in the state of Ohio. And I still remember I'm at the cusp of the driveway, handing out information to clients going in and out, talking to the abortion workers in between. And all of a sudden, the door of the abortion facility swung open, and this girl, like this beautiful, probably about 25-year-old young woman, made a beeline for me, like came right out to the sidewalk. And she's like, her hands are shaking. It's like she was shaking off something. And she goes, oh my gosh, thank God I'm out of there. I'm out of there. And I just looked at her like, whoa, what just happened, right? And I looked at her and I said, wow, you just changed your mind, didn't you? And she said, yeah, I think I did. But it's almost like she got gobsmacked by something while she was inside. I don't even know if she was a believer. I have no idea what her faith background was. But we just had a conversation for a couple moments, and she was letting me know that she had to just get out of there. Whatever heaviness, whatever darkness, whatever evil it was that she was feeling while inside, she just needed to be away from it. And she came straight out to us on the sidewalk. And I think that this is why it's so important that we be that lighthouse on the sidewalk. And we don't need to look fancy. Again, we love to wear a uniform out on the sidewalk, so we amplify our professionalism. So I'm in my safety, my blue safety reflector vest that has our logo on it, lets them know I'm a volunteer that day. And, my hair is combed and I look like a normal person. That's important too, right? But she was looking for safety on the sidewalk. She was looking to get away from whatever that was inside the facility. And if we remain a place of peace and hope and love and light, that attracts people even back out to the sidewalk with us. You know, so many clients, when they're initially going in, they may not listen to us or they may take information and they're thinking about it. But this is why we have to maintain our disposition throughout our shift, because we never know who's going to leave. And when they feel that contrast of the darkness of the facility and the light out on the sidewalk, many times they want to be back out on the sidewalk with us, right? Well, let's go ahead and dive into some stories here. We all have stories with abortion center escorts. I'm going to tell a couple really quick, and then I'm going to bring in Elizabeth, Melissa, Susan, and if we have time, Linda on this in that order. But all right, so my couple of kind of top abortion center escort stories are, now one of them is not with me. I didn't experience it, obviously, but I think of one of our top leaders in the country, Father Peter, who's actually at the largest Catholic parish in the country, in North Carolina, in the Charlotte area. He would frequently go out to the sidewalk and pray and hand out loving, life-affirming alternatives to those going in. And when he would be out there, the escorts would draw satanic symbols around his feet. And then someone got a sign, and my understanding is they also did this to other male sidewalk advocates on the Charlotte team, but they would hold a sign with an arrow towards him, and it said child molester. And all I can think about is, if you know Father Peter, he is amazing. Like, so kind, down to earth, self-sacrificial. I don't even need to say anymore, right? Yes, there's a few priests in the church that have really hurt people, and there's no excuse for that. But to brand this man who has no fault in this regard in that way, while he's trying to actually serve women and families who are in crisis, is unbelievable to me, right? Absolutely unbelievable. Another story that comes to mind, we had an old team member, Bethany, and Ramona, former Planned Parenthood manager that sometimes went on trips with us to minister to some of our leaders. But Bethany and Ramona were at a site in Arizona, and this escort had been banging a cowbell. She banged a cowbell in Bethany's ear most of the time that she was on the sidewalk trying to talk to women and men going in. And then at one point, I guess this just must have been comic relief, like no kidding. I'm going to go ahead and say this, right? The escort leans over to Bethany and goes, "I hope you get a yeast infection and I hope it itches." And Bethany just died laughing inside, right? And couldn't wait to tell us about that. But it was almost like really welcome comic relief at that point. So anyways, I've heard it all. I've seen it all. Like I said, I've been out on the sidewalk when actually half the time I didn't know satanic music was playing. I was like, oh, they're playing hard rock. And then somebody later was like, no, that was satanic music, Lauren. And I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't even know. I don't know. Maybe I was prayed up and I didn't realize it. But all right. Elizabeth, let me go to you. Crazy abortion center escort story.
Sure. So as you were just sharing that story about Bethany, Lauren, I can't help but think to myself, what other professional healthcare services do you go to where you have people with cowbells and people dressed in rainbow vests playing loud music, dancing provocatively, yelling vulgar slurs at you, physically shuffling the clients into the building to receive their health care. I mean, really, truly, it's very eye-opening if you ever get to experience this, because it's truly shocking that this goes on, to be honest, that professional healthcare services are actually having this and promoting this in front of their facilities. Right. So the two that I can think of, I was on that sidewalk with Father Peter in Charlotte. Praise God that facility closed down and 3 abortion workers left.
It did.
Abortion clinic and got help with, and then there were none. So that battle was not for nothing. So God shut that place down. And what I would say is, when I was on that sidewalk, there was a woman who was affiliated with the facility, and she would watch from a nearby driveway when a client would come and put their blinker on to turn in. She would bring her big SUV and ride it right behind the client's vehicle so that they would be intimidated and and they would not stop their car at the driveway to speak to us. And they did this multiple times. It was just organized effort. I have never seen something in my life like that. And talk about forceful and not offering choice, right? And then the other thing that I will never forget is being in Casper, Wyoming, where the only surgical facility was open. Today it is not. Currently, it is not open. But Wellspring, I was there, and they had a bunch of escorts. These are mostly like middle-aged women, some of them with gray hair, and playing loud music, vulgar. Like you would think there was like some kind of like almost like a college party atmosphere. People dressed in ridiculous costumes. And when the clients would pull in, the escorts would surround them like a swarm of bees or wasps with their big umbrellas, and they would literally huddle around the person and be so loud that the person could not hear us calling out to them in a loving fashion. So they went to such extremes, and I'll never forget, they were literally putting their hands on clients and shuffling them inside. Now that is not choice. And I'll never forget that. And thankfully, those escorts were gone one day. And shortly thereafter, that facility closed down. So I'll let you pass to the next person.
Wow. Yeah. So, wow. I mean, wow. What do you say? Melissa, what do you got?
Yeah, so I just want to, again, Elizabeth shared that this is really anti-choice, these antics we're seeing. So many of the clients, they don't know about the help available. And many of the ones who've chosen life have said, we were undecided, and we were praying for a sign or some reason that we could, grab a hold of to hope and to choose life. So that is really the part that's so hard, is to know that these women, they really truly do want the support we're there to bring. So for me, there's a few. I'm going to start by saying in Grand Rapids, there was a crazy incident where a man just came unhinged and threw some dog poop. He had his dog with him at our advocates, that was crazy. But a situation happened out of state. One of the ways we support our teams is when we know that they are dealing with this intense pressure from the abortion industry and escorts, we sometimes take a visit out to a sidewalk and, just do an assessment and support that team. So on a trip out of state, we were working as a team, and we had coordinated a wonderful way to have really great access to a window. These escorts were kind of unaware of that. And the moment they realized that I had, a clear line to the window and I was speaking with somebody pulling into the facility, she comes running at me, running right at me. And, the moment that this car ended up pulling on through, I'm turning because I can see somebody coming at me out of my side vision. I turned, this young lady puts her shoulders back and sort of just chest bumps right into me. And I realized she didn't do it totally intentionally, but I want to warn her that it is not okay to touch me. Just as Lauren has taught us, we teach in our training, it's not okay for you to touch me. And if you touch me again, I will call the police. Well, flying from somewhere else comes another very aggressive escort with her camera up saying, I saw you stepped in front of that car, you pushed her. And I'm thinking, I have to think on my feet because she's recording me. And she's saying, I'm going to get this to the police. I can't wait to see you handcuffed and thrown in the back of the cop car. And the police are really enforcing the law, and things like you're violating the FACE Act. And all of this is pure lies that she's just spewing out, these ridiculous lies. And I, calmly stated the truth after each lie, thinking, okay, she's got this on camera and it is the truth. She just underestimated my knowledge of the right-of-way. She thought I was a newbie out there. And what happened was, her whole plan was foiled. I was able, because I pulled up my camera to record what she was saying, We connected with Martin Cannon. He was there. The police did come, and I called them, and she was threatening to call them on me. It's a lot of threats. It's a lot of intimidation. But when I showed that police officer what she had said about her hopes to see me handcuffed, and it all did not work out well for these escorts. And so I really love and value our training, but it was really a moment where it's like, okay, somebody is filming me, spewing lies, and threatening me in a lot of these very serious ways. So,
well, and that's why we have to know our rights, right? Like, that's why we have to know our rights, is because I've showed up to sites too. They had no idea I was the leader of like this movement in the United States, right? And so they're like, oh, the new girl, I'm going to go ahead and tell her she can't stand there, and we're going to call the police. Then I would just look at them and go ahead. I'm within my rights. This is the public right of way. I have First Amendment rights, right? And they would get thrown off their game in turn because they didn't know how to deal with this. And so that's why we have to know our legal rights out on the sidewalk, because we can just counter very kindly that, no, thank you for your concern. I'm well within my rights this morning, and I'm going to keep doing my thing, right? So important. Susan, let me go ahead and go to you, and then we'll have the last couple questions here.
Okay, great. It's been hard to pick one, but the one that comes to mind is actually when Melissa and I were visiting a location in the Midwest. We were there actually with the goal to help the team who had been dealing with difficult escorts at this particular abortion facility. And once we arrived that morning, it did not take us long to see exactly what they had been dealing with. Melissa was attempting to reach out to a client, going in with an offer of help. She had a gift bag. And there was one escort in particular who was making it their entire mission to keep this from happening. They had a vulgar sign strapped around their neck, both in the front and the back, just, to make sure you could see their vulgar message. And they actually had, it seemed like a custom thing. It was a face mask with a built-in kazoo, those little things that you blow when they make really loud noise. And this person was blowing it directly into Melissa's face at full volume to the point that she could feel the spittle on her face from the kazoo that this person was blowing. And I have to tell you that Melissa handled it so beautifully. She stood her ground while having the presence of mind to also be holding her camera to film what was happening. And this person had put their body into Melissa. They grabbed the bag out of her hand and chucked it across the yard. So while this was happening, I'm praying, I'm observing, I'm calling the police. And I'll tell you, it was a godsend, because also a man came to the sidewalk that day to pray who hadn't been there in ages. It turned out he was pro-life and he was an attorney. And he became completely instrumental in helping us with this, navigating the police. This escort ended up being arrested that day and taken away off of the sidewalk. And then, we did have some follow-up situations with going to court and things like that. But it was really amazing just to see how the training we received played out using it in that situation. And I have to give Melissa all the kudos, because she was extraordinary under that pressure. And I was so proud of her while I was standing there. And I was never rattled. I had this peaceful feeling about me. And I knew the Lord was there with us and we were going to be okay. So that's one of the ones that comes to the top of my mind.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, it's so important we keep our peace, because the enemy is trying to throw us off our game, steal our peace, try to get us to not accomplish our mission. Such a good life lesson too, right? Okay, last couple questions here. We just have a few minutes left. Why do you think, I think we've kind of indirectly answered this, but just to directly answer it, why do you think that the escorts work so hard to keep people from talking to our advocates? So let's go Elizabeth, Linda, Melissa, real quick.
Sure. So the first thing is they believe the lie that we're the enemy, and we're definitely not the enemy. But like, as you said earlier, Lauren, there is a real enemy that wants to steal and destroy. And so they think we're the enemy. They think that they have a job to do. They think they are protecting women. but really, truly, they're misguided in the fact that they think that we're there to force people to continue pregnancies. What we're there to do is to offer help at that last moment, to make sure that no one feels like their only choice is abortion, and that we want to love them and get them the help that they deserve for them, their babies, their families, and truly for their lives, right? To make their lives more healthy and whole.
Yeah, so good. Linda? So good.
I'll just go back to what I said from the beginning, and I'll stick with that. I think they just work so hard to do that is because they're so hurt. They're so hurt and they're so wounded that they want to keep them away from that truth. From exactly what Elizabeth was saying, of that truth of really receiving loving, affirming resources and help, of really stepping into that light, that they're still into that darkness. So they want to keep their bubble of darkness and bring people into that darkness that they're in, unfortunately, right? And so that's their mission, and that's unfortunately what they're doing,
Yeah, so true. Melissa?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times it's a spirit of despair, truly, of life, that they really are in a place where that beautiful gift of life, the value of the bond that a mother has with her preborn baby, and that relationship and the sacredness of that, they're in despair of life. They believe that life may not be possible for this woman, and that abortion is a good solution. And it's also coming from a place, I think, sometimes of an identity and a cause, which we can all understand, that being passionate about a cause or having a sense of community and shared mission is something that on both sides we have. And so I think that their mission is centered around that belief. And it's rooted in pain, and also rooted in just that belief that abortion is a positive or a necessary thing, and that we're the ones who are, being rude, being, just not respecting women. So I think they're coming to it with a lot of different things, and that this is their cause, this is their community, this is what they want to fight for, and they're just. Sometimes it's been really beautiful to see that when they find out that we are really actually there helping people, some of that deflates when they can experience the love of Christ through us and our kindness, although they're there standing, to create chaos for us. They actually can have a change of heart about it, and even not intervene when we're communicating with clients. And so, I do think that it's coming from a misguided compassion, really, truly.
Yeah. Great answers. I think this leads perfectly into the next question, which is why it's important to pray for escorts and abortion workers. We do see a lot of these folks leave. We do see a lot of these folks find healing and peace and hope, right? So they are not a lost cause by any stretch, just like not a one of us is a lost cause. We all have a story of coming to Christ and finding his grace, right? So 30 seconds or less. Kelly, why is it important to pray for abortion workers and for escorts? Oh, you're on mute.
It's very, very important to pray for escort and abortion workers, because our mission on the sidewalk is to be the voice, the hand, the feet of Christ. And our desire is the conversion of everyone in the abortion industry. Through our presence on the sidewalk, we develop relationship with abortion workers and escorts. We know that they are in a spiritual battle, and we are there to support them with resources available from, and then they were known, which is a great organization from Abby Johnson. We can be the instruments from them to change their lives and encourage them to leave that place of oppression and blindness. We want them to have the conversion of heart and live a life with purpose.
Yes, amen. Briana, 30 seconds or less. Why is it important to pray for abortion center escorts and workers?
The last thing I'll say is we know that there's power in sin, and that these evil spirits are real, and that regardless of maybe their involvement with the facility or maybe their own experience with abortion, that the only thing that can battle these spirits is prayer. And the reality is that lots of these people are not praying for themselves, and they're not a part of a community that's praying for them. Ooh. So something I was thinking of, and I challenge myself to think of, is I just pray quietly to myself, Jesus, thank you for bringing this person here. Thank you for getting them out into the community where they're actually standing in front of the whole Christian community on the sidewalk right now. And I wonder actually how many more people who have volunteered as escorts actually have had a conversion of heart, because so many more people are interceding for them than people who might just feel the same way at them, but don't have the people praying for them.
You almost made me cry, Briana. That is so true, right? Nobody may be praying for them except for us. Nobody may be loving them, showing them the love of Christ except for us. What an opportunity. Susan, let's cap it off with your perspective on this.
I would say because each and every one of them is also a child of God. And while we're out there to save lives, we're also out there to save souls and see people find their way to Christ. And I love that this part of our ministry, exists, because it is so important. And I'm so grateful that we have our wonderful friends at And Then There Were None to direct the workers and escorts to when they're ready to leave the industry. For those that don't know, maybe, And Then There Were None helps people in the abortion industry leave their jobs, rediscover the peace and joy that they've been missing. And if you'd like to learn more about them, you can check out their website at abortionworker.com.
Love that. Love our friends at And Then There Were None, who are receiving all the workers that we're sending them, because we get to do the crisis intervention. They do the ongoing crisis management, meaning they bring them healing. They bring them opportunities to attend healing retreats. They have vocational opportunities, connecting them with a resume writer and job opportunities and all of that. We're so grateful to our friends at And Then There Were None, started by former Planned Parenthood director Abby Johnson, who left the industry years ago and has helped over 700, at this point in history, 700 workers leave the industry and find hope and healing in Christ. So awesome. Well, ladies, I am so grateful to God for you. We know that we can't do this alone. We do this as the body of Christ. Thank you for supporting our saints, our saintly leaders, and our saintly sidewalk advocates on the front lines each and every day. And for those who are listening right now, if you would pray a special prayer over our regional programs managers who are pouring into our leaders, who are then pouring into our sidewalk advocates, and who in turn are pouring into the women and the families who are entering the abortion facility. We so appreciate your prayers, and we continue to see so many victories on the sidewalk, even with workers coming to Christ and finding hope and healing themselves because of your prayers and your support of this ministry. So thank you to all of you who are listening for offering up your prayers and your support of the ministry today. And ladies, I love you. You guys are the best in the world. Thank you for all that you do, and keep up the great work. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. All right, we're going to get ready to do a closing thought here. Okay, so I promised that this would be a little bit of a wild ride. I hope you got some laughs in there about some of the antics we have witnessed and experienced. And I hope you got a ton of insight into sidewalk advocacy itself in the midst of a heated environment in the culture right now. But even beyond that, I hope you have maybe just the start of some sympathy for these folks who find it so easy to be hurtful to their fellow human beings, all in the name of abortion rights. These folks' moral compass is definitely out of whack. And yet so many of them believe that they're doing good, that they're supporting women, that they're helping people. But I always remember, just as Linda has said so well, hurt people hurt people. Wounded people like to wound people. And so I keep in mind that no matter where in life I'm experiencing that, it's because somebody else is hurting and they need my love and they need my prayers. It doesn't mean that I tolerate ridiculous behavior. If our person or property is being threatened on the sidewalk, we call the police, right? But we don't return evil with evil. We return evil with a blessing. And the scriptures tell us that we will be blessed for doing that. So I invite you today to join me in saying a special prayer for abortion center escorts and also abortion workers, that we all pray that their hearts, their eyes are open to the egregious reality of what abortion really is, that their hearts are eventually filled with remorse for this harmful behavior and what they're a part of in the industry. and that they will come to understand that they're deserving of life and life abundant themselves, that leaving the abortion industry and walking out into the arms of Christ will be the biggest gift that they can give to themselves. Wow. What an episode. With that, thank you all so much for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Musica Show. We'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on Facebook Live, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week.